the transition is a timing issue as well. And one of the things that came out of the whole discussion about Disney and Charter was Chris Winfrey's comment, the CEO of Charter, that they no longer need video, period, and live video as a portion of it, that their data business is more interesting to the traditional MVPDs. If we assume, which I think is fair, particularly for this panel, that the future is bright at the point when the transition happens, how dislocating is it if the MVPDs decide they're going to be the cord cutters? How does that impact the timing and the approach that your leagues take? And was there anything that came out of the way Winfrey played that to the street or the way it resolved itself that causes you concern about the timing of transition?
Well, look, they clearly want to be in the broadband business. You know, that's a very profitable business for them. And you know, the notion that the video business isn't that profitable for them anymore, I'm sure that's true to an extent. I also think it was a negotiating tactic to an extent. And I think we know the value of a bundle, and so then being able to deliver both broadband and video is a differentiator. You know, there are other sources for broadband these days. You know, the wireless companies are in-home 5G. I mean, there are other options for broadband, so it's still a value to the consumer to bundle. But look, this is why we have to future-proof our businesses and why this transition is critical. And you know, we're looking at our renewal as a hybrid approach between linear and streaming. And you have to meet the fans where they are. There are still predominantly people watching our games on linear TV. That is still the primary way that people are consuming content. It's less and less, and more people are shifting to streaming, but there are a lot of those people, so we don't want to disenfranchise them by moving our offering entirely to streaming, but we'd also be ignoring what's happening if we just stay on linear television, as particularly our younger fans are moving to streaming services. So this next deal, as we're thinking about it, and this transition is all about hybrid and navigating kind of a dual world of linear and streaming. You know, 10 years from now, maybe there won't be linear. I mean, we'll see. But I think right now you have to be prepared with both, and you have to have a strategy that's flexible and a hybrid so that you can navigate depending on where the macro takes you.
Yeah, look, from a baseball standpoint, we have more games than any other sport. We have more live content on a nightly basis. So we've made the concerted effort strategically to invest early on direct-to-consumer. I mean, we were the first major sports league to have direct-to-consumer video streaming out of market, and we've built on that product over time. And so I think the answer to your question is that, and what Scott was saying, is that leagues need to continue to invest in all generations of technologies so that we're prepared no matter how the macro world steers you. And I think what's important is to have offerings that are compelling in all these spaces. And as you see one space or another ratchet up or ratchet down, be prepared to jump in and offer a service that consumers think is compelling. As an example, this year, Diamond Sports dropped two of our teams, the Padres and the Diamondbacks, in the middle of the season. And we were able to transition those teams to an MLB-controlled platform. We became the first sports league to actually produce and transmit live sports games for our teams in less than 24 hours. And that was because we made these proactive investments to build technology such that when the world changes, we were ready. And I think these guys are doing the same thing. That's where you need to be from a league perspective, is just be prepared for the transition so that if Chris Winfrey decides one day he wants to change his tune, you're not all of a sudden out of luck. You know?
I want to pivot off of that point, because that's the other timing and transition change you all are facing. It's the collapse or certainly the pressure imposed on the RSN part of the ecosystem, traditionally the second largest check that your member teams receive for their local broadcast rights. With Diamond filing for bankruptcy, with Warner Brothers Discovery exiting with their stations, how does the timing and approach to solving the RSN problem differ among the leagues? Baseball has taken the most aggressive position, personified by the commissioner, to trying to deliver a national solution league-wide. do you anticipate there's going to be difficulty from some of your teams that have made the investment in being media companies a decade or more ago, so that offering a league solution for those folks who have made that investment is going to be a hard choice to make, distinguished from somebody whose games are not going to be broadcast 2 nights from now? How does that differ, and how does Manfred's approach to these issues differ from the other leagues? And then I'll ask your colleagues.
Yeah, so for us, local streaming and local video is a bigger part of our cost profile, just because we have more games, we have more viewership in local markets, we spend more money telling the local story. It's a nightly game. And so I think Rob's strategy from the beginning has been, let's lean into that strategic advantage and try to take control of the situation. And so we really have made a concerted effort to invest in technology and platform services that would step in and facilitate that transition. The other element of it that you mentioned is that it also creates an opportunity for us to nationalize the product offering. And so this idea that, I live in this territory and I can't watch my favorite team, because it's not on cable television or my cable television provider, it's just a bad thing for the leagues to position for the teams and the leagues to be in. And so we view it as an opportunity to potentially just repackage the off and really globally, as Scott was talking about, not just what zip code do you live in and this is the offering. It's just you live anywhere in the world and you get access to this content, a little bit like what MLS has done with their most recent offering. I think that's where you're going to start to see these products going, is global deals where you give rights to a third party. And honestly, we believe that you're going to be giving your rights to multiple third parties. It may not be exclusive deals anymore. It may be we have 2, 3, 4, 5 partners, and you'll be subscribing to one of those services and you'll get access to our content, and we'll be able to monetize it that way. And we'll get back to the world that we were in 15 years ago, 30 years ago, where you had universal reach and you built fan bases and you had people watching your games, and moving away from the world where we are now, where in some markets, like for example, in Arizona, we had less than 1 million households that had access to our content. And as soon as we dropped Diamond Sports Group and built our own product, we increased that by 5 times. We went from under 1 million to over 5 million households, overnight. That's the type of transition that we need to be facilitating to build the future fan.